still the favourites are Wigan. They've got the best defensive system in the competition for me on big day games. That's crucial. And they've got the experience. They understand the winning habits and winning behaviour. They understand about the culture of staying in a game. So they won't get fazed by that whatsoever.
Well, hello everybody and welcome back to the latest episode at Back 10 here. I am your host Kyle Amor and I'm joined once again by Matt Shaw, the game's leading journalist. And each and every week we've brought you some blockbuster, huge names from the world of Rugby League. And our guest this week, as many would regard as probably the greatest ever to play the game. For a certain generation watching this podcast or listening, the game did exist pre-1996. And this man, well, Matt can only be described as a legend, an absolute legend.
Icon, I think.
It is Mr. Ellery Hanley. How are you?
I'm very well. And introductory was fantastic and it was beautiful and everything. But I was going to butt in there, Kyle, and just say to you, I couldn't have done this all by myself. So it's a team game. It was collective in terms of what happened to us through that period of time with the Wigan side and with obviously we had some small success against Australia, international level and everything, and also against my competitors as well, in terms of the teams I played against. They actually made sure that they pushed me further and that excelled me even further.
Well, we'll hear more from Ellery's journey throughout his time in the world of Rugby League. Lots to discuss there. But before we jump into that, there is a new feature out there. Each and every week, we ask you guys at home to comment. We love hearing from you. But underneath the video, next to the comments, if you swipe left, if you're watching from a mobile or a tablet, you will see the hype button. If you click that hype button, it allows us to reach a wider audience. You get 3 hypes each and every week. So make sure you hype up this show, the prediction show, and any other videos here at All Out Rugby League and help spread the word. But for now, let's get into the show. So, the regular season done. For many fans, it's the most wonderful time of the year. It is. The playoffs are about to begin. What a season we had, Matt.
Yeah, an interesting season, hasn't it? There's been so many ups and downs for so many teams and so many stories that have played out, with the ugly in terms of Salford, but the brilliant in terms of Hull KR and the Challenge Cup. And now we get the grand finale and the grand final. Who plays in it? We don't yet know. But I feel like I say this every year, but I feel it more than ever this time. I don't know how this plays out. I think it's a fascinating end to the season with 6 very good teams who have all at periods of the season showcased that they are capable of making and winning a grand final.
Well, from my perspective, I look at it this way. History doesn't matter to me in terms of what they've done last year, what they did 5 years ago or 10 years ago. It's all about that 80 minutes, and that's how I view every single game. For me, still the favourites are Wigan, simply because, I'll keep it simple and short in terms of the reasons why they are the favourites still. They've got the best defensive system in the competition for me on big day games. That's crucial. And they've got the experience. They've got a lot of players with so much 80 minutes behind them. They understand the winning habits and winning behaviour. They understand about the culture of staying in a game. So they won't get fazed by that whatsoever for me. So they really are solid favourites for me.
I couldn't agree more. It's something that we've said, and the momentum that Wigan have started showing over the last couple of weeks. You know, they are big game. They are a big game team, aren't they? They know how to get the job done. But those two get a week off, Hull KR and Wigan. They get the luxury of finishing top 1 and 2. They get to watch everybody else knock the living crap out of each other this weekend. Touching on one of your other former teams, Ellery. Leeds Rhinos v St Helens. What a playoff that game is going to be.
Yeah, Carl, it's going to be a great game. And once again, I think it's going to be a tight game. And I wouldn't imagine it'll be a high-scoring game, because I think the first focus, both coaches, Paul Wellens, he will be firstly thinking defence, and knowing how both sides play in terms of they want to finish well in terms of making sure that they defend well and tackle well. And that's their first focus for me. So I think it's going to be a tight game, and probably at the best, probably 4 to 6 points in it.
Interesting. Look, what have you made of St Helens this year? Obviously you got to coach, and we'll discuss that later on. But what have you made? Look, they finished 6th last year. Yep. They finished 5th this season. They got knocked out at this stage in the playoffs last year to Warrington, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
What have you made of that?
Well, I think every team in the whole competition, I think all 12 teams, I think that they've all had the ups and downs, and I think once you've been a great team like that, or a great individual, and you fall from grace a little bit, and you've lost 2 or 3 games, the microscope's on you, and you're actually examining yourself, and you're wondering what's happened, why have we lost this touch? But they've had a lot of changes for me, and I still think they're a very good side. I think they've got a lot of unexperience in their side as well, in certain positions in the centres and so forth. And it's whether those young players can handle the big pressure games when they come around for the 80 minutes. I think they will, but I think it's still going to be a very tricky game in terms of who's going to win and who's going to lose, simply because the magnitude of the game's huge. Mm-hmm. I really, truly believe that the side who defends the best and tackles the best on that particular day will win the game.
Well, Brad Harper certainly changed the defensive mindset of the Rhinos, Matt. Look, does form, Ellery touched there before, history out the window. St Helens have beaten Leeds each and every occasion this year. Does that play a factor into next Saturday night?
So they've won 3 out of the 4, haven't they?
3 out of 4, sorry.
Leeds won at Magic. When we all thought, there was a lot of talk that Paul Wellens might lose his job after that performance, if you recall. Saints stuck with him, and rightly so, in my opinion. But Leeds, they have been a bit of a bogey team more recently. Saints have won the last 2. In fact, they nilled Leeds last time. You talked about the defence, and that was 6-0. And Saints are defending very well, although they didn't at the weekend, but still. Yeah. I just think with Leeds, they've got a good defence. They're no longer like Rowan Smith, where they would win try of the season, but they were never going to win competitions, I didn't think. They have got a stern defence now, and also the return of some very key players, some magical players who didn't play at the weekend. So I think Leeds will go in as the favourites. And I just spoke to Brad Harper after the game on Friday, and he's so up for this. I've never seen him come across as bullish as he did after Friday night, and I thought, I feel like he can sense something's coming at Leeds.
My point about this, I think once you're in the position of coaching, Carl, you've had a little touch of coaching. And I always believe that it doesn't matter how much the coach is up or he feels really confident. He has to say all the right words when he comes in front of the camera and the players and so forth. He has to front up and everything. For me, it's all down to the players. Once they cross that whitewash, they have the understanding their duties and their responsibilities on the field to each other and to their hometown as well, and to their spectators and their broader spectators all over the world. And I think it really does boil down to that alone in terms of that particular 80 minutes. I'll give you a great example. Some years ago, when I coached at St Helens, I remember us going in, we went to Bradford Bulls, and we played them, and we got absolutely tonked there. Probably by about 30 points. The better side won on that particular day, the Bradford Bulls. And this is the reason why I always say it doesn't matter what happened last week or 3 weeks ago or last year, or whether a team has lost 4 games on a trot. What matters is the here and now, that 80 minutes. And you've got to get your players in that frame of mind and that understanding. And this is what I'm talking about, winning habits and winning culture and understanding about winning behaviour, is this. We went into that game, we got hammered at the Bulls, and rightly so, we were poor. Let me tell you, I remember getting the analysis tape, and I threw it in the bin. And next thing, what had happened, we started all over again. I knew my St. Helens side were a lot better than what we showed up at the Bradford Bulls. And obviously, as it's well known now, and it's written in black and white now, the St. Helens team, we turned Bradford over at the grand final. So for me, all this, great talking points, and it's fantastic. And it's great for pub talk and the crowds talking about it and so forth. But I stick with reality in the terms of that. I stick with that 80 minutes that the team is going to be under.
I think it's incredible that it's 25 years ago since that grand final.
Is it?
Yeah.
Wow. Amazing.
It is. What do you best remember about that particular day, that particular final? Because it must be memories for a lifetime, you know.
You're certainly right there, Matt. There are memories and so forth, but in life, with everything, whatever you're doing, for me anyway, you move on, and it's only when it's been brought up again, and it does become nostalgic, and you think to yourself, it was great to be involved with that particular time. I mean, I was very fortunate to have some wonderful players in Sean Long, Paul Sculthorpe, Chris Joynt, Kevin Iro, Paul Newlove. These players were brilliant. You know, Kieran Cunningham, world class. And I trusted them. All season, I trusted them. You know, we played well all season. And I knew, as I said, just repeating myself, in regards to us losing that week before, we were going to go play the Bradford Bulls again in that final. I trusted those players. I looked at them and I went into I remember going into you asked me a question about what do I most remember about that particular period of time. And it was actually going into my office, sitting down. I watched the analysis of that particular game when we got hammered the week before, but I just knew the boys were much better than that. We really had an off day that day. Don't get me wrong, I won't take any credit away from the Bradford, but they played well. And sometimes that's what coaches have to do. You have to own up and say, my team wasn't good enough. And the team we played against, they played much better than we did for that particular 80 minutes. But you've got to brush that aside and get ready for the next 80 minutes.
But Ellery, it takes a real strong leader to have that mindset to a group of young men that will dwell on the performance from the week before. So I understand exactly what you're saying. What I wanted to ask you was, what, in your experience, success as a player or success as a coach, which one did you prefer?
Probably both equal. I'll tell you why, Kyle. Because I think when you're a player, you have more control on the field in terms of how the game will go and which direction the game will go. Once you're a coach, you trust in those players. And I did. Every team I've coached, even with the Doncaster side, I trusted them. I remember we got to the grand final and nobody thought we would get to the grand final with such a young team and everything. We won the grand final against the favourites. Now, for me, it's really, they're both equal in terms of to be in that privileged position of being able to have played all those years and then to coach a side. Then what you've got to do, you've got to trust in those players. That's so crucial. You must trust it. And I did. All the players I've just mentioned just then, the Paul Sculthorpes and co, they were brilliant. They were magnificent. Every week they came in. And I know coaches talk about this on a regular basis. They'll say, oh, we've come in, we've worked hard this week and we've really put all the effort in this week. But really, most teams do that anyway, right? But you've got to be special in being hard-nosed, knowing that you know that you've got to get everything right on that day for 80 minutes. And it starts with the defence always. For me, that's the head of the menu every single time. If I go into any organisation, first thing I want to talk about is defence, right? How we're going to stop the opposition and making sure we nullify their threats all over the footy park, and then looking at all the small details then in terms of controlling the ruck area.
Well, often we always talk about defence being a choice and an attitude thing. You know, you can not attack well in a game and still win, but you're very unlikely to win a game if you're not willing to defend properly. Yeah,
that is absolutely correct, and hence why it always has to be at the top of the menu for me. And you'll see over the years of period of time, even through my period of time playing at Wigan, our first port of call was to defend and tackle well. We knew then we had more than a 50% chance of winning that football game because across the park we had brilliance. And I think that helps massively as well. But we had that trust there with all the players within that establishment and who were playing for the Wigan flag at that particular time. So for me, you can't put anything else before defence.
Yeah, no, we see it all the time, don't we, in the playoffs? Low-scoring games usually, but we've touched upon there a bit of Wigan, a bit of Leeds, a bit of St Helens. That's the more difficult side of the draw in the playoffs, isn't it? You know, if we cast our heads to the other side of the playoffs, Hull KR get that week off.
They need that week off as well.
And they'll,
they
agree.
need that week.
I agree with that.
You've got, obviously, Leigh and Wakefield. They'll then battle it out to go on to Hull KR. We mentioned there about trust, and we mentioned there about forgetting previous experiences. Is it fair, Matt, to say one club that needs to adopt that, what Ellery spoke about, more quickly than the rest of them is Hull KR?
Possibly.
Because they've again, even at the weekend there with Warrington, hardly convincing, was it?
It wasn't convincing. What I will say is, I said the same about Brad Arthur, actually. Willie Peters came in and spoke very differently to usual in the press. And I take your point about you've got to say the right things in the media, but I always think you can get a read on what Willie's thinking. And he spoke about how he's incredibly relaxed about the form going into the playoffs and how he's seen it before that teams can go in flying and then lose. He thinks that his team is very well positioned to rediscover their top form from earlier in the season going into the playoffs. Why he thinks that, I think mentally he probably knows they've been a little bit burnt out and they've seen the finish line with the League Leaders Shield, and maybe that's reflected in the performances. And they've seen that this week off is coming. I think this week off is enormous for Hull KR as a reset, a refresh, and they'll come back. And I'm expecting the best of Hull KR to return. I think we've all decided to write them off. Have they played too many games? Are they fatigued? I think they'll come back flying.
Matt, the thing is, it's very delicate, and the balance of winning and losing and understanding how you won and how to improve on your next game afterwards. It's very, very delicate. For me, I think Hull KR mentally had burnt themselves out as well. And I agree with Matt 100%. This week, the whole week off, is going to freshen them up. It's going to be brilliant for them. And I think all the players need that. But it's still going to be a tough task for them to get back on the horse again and everything. I don't, personally, I think they're going to be okay. The problem, what you've always got is this. When you've been brilliant all season, whether it's as an individual and you're chasing personal awards and so forth, or whether you're a team collectively and you're looking to win trophies, I always think if you've had a really good long run of winning, the pressure builds and the pressure builds and it builds. And it becomes more difficult. Each week it gets difficult. Fatigue sets in. Mentally, you're tired. Then all of a sudden, I'll just give you another small example. You'll see down around, you can tell this by around the ruck area, right? If players are just getting a bit lazy, they're not working on the inside and they're not talking as much. And you can feel it. It's actually, the energy is being zapped away because they've been brilliant all season. So for any team to be able to play the whole season without having a flaw in the game or a drop off in the game, sometime or another, they're phenomenal. But so that will never happen. But what happens? We examine it, and I'm talking about punters. No, I don't, because obviously Kyle's been there and he knows the situation as well. But as a player, for me, and as a coach as well, I understand there has to be a drop off, right? It's when you can get that up again and get back up again, get back on your toes again, and doing all those small particular things really well on the footy paddock. They talk about detail. Now, for me, detail is this. Example, right? If you're controlling the ruck area and then you're up off the ground, and some of the games I've watched Hull KR in the last few weeks, and you examine their ruck area, you think to yourself, they're not as sharp as what they were like 3 months ago, 4 months ago. And that's detail for me, right? It's because it starts with the defence. As I said to you, on the menu, it always has to start with your defence. And for me, they haven't had that energy. They've leaked in a few more points than what they normally do. Yeah. So for me, I wouldn't go too hard on Hull KR. There has to be a drop-off sometime or another. It's whether they can get back to that same level as they were 3-4 months ago.
Well, if they can.
Yeah, I do. There's no question. I think they've got enough experience in the side. They've got some great individuals, and collectively, I think they're strong enough as a team to move forward from this.
Well, you make a great couple of points there, because I think they were only conceding 9 points a game up until when Leeds blew them away. Yeah. Since then, they've gone to Wakefield, conceded quite a few. They conceded a few at the weekend there as well. So, maybe you've got a point there. There is a lot that needs to be doing moving forward. The week off will no doubt help them out. I just want to touch upon the similarities. We talked about OKR being great all year, but we can actually rewind it. This is a club that's been building. 2 years ago, 2023, Lachlan Lamb drop goal in the Challenge Cup final. They then make the playoffs. Then they make, their progression as a club has been going so far in one way that maybe there's I think probably must be about half of that team who's still been on that journey with them all. So there's been a lot coming at them. The dynasty that you laid the foundations at Wigan, and do you see similarities between what Hull KR could become? Well, the question is whether they can go and do. I very much doubt that any team's going to go and do what Wigan did in the early 90s and beyond. Can Hull KR, do you see any similarities between the groups that you were part of all them years ago and what's happening now?
Well, I think it's very difficult to compare because of the era of time the games were played in when I played, and now the modern game with all the players in there now. I think what you have to do, you have to compartmentalize it all, and you've got to put them in different categories in terms of that. Right now, Hull KR are doing brilliant. How you sustain it is a different ball game completely, a completely different ball game. Now, the coaches have different ideas in terms of how they actually want to move their team forward or how they want to refresh their side each week. And some coaches like to train a little bit less, some like to train a bit more. And you may find throughout these playoffs, for example, that there's some teams who'll have that week off, like the Wigan and Hull KR. They may not come back as good as if they were playing consistently. So going back, and that's why I always throw out this idea of pundits and spectators and the sports people themselves, the players themselves. I always throw out the idea they think to themselves, well, we're going to be okay because last year we did this. Last year's got nothing to do with anything. 6 weeks has got nothing to do with anything. Let me tell you something. It's all about this 80 minutes, what you do in it, and what every individual player does in that moment of time. Players change the course and history of games every split second of the 80 minutes. And this is what's crucial. Now, if I'm in an organisation, that's one of the things I talk about, changing the course and history of the game, right? It's important that they understand, all the players understand in that team, that winning starts with them, with that individual player.
Well, look, I mean, that is touching upon Hull KR. Of course, it's going to be Leigh Leopards against Wakefield. Before they face one of them, just very quickly, because we need to move on. Leigh and Wakefield. Leigh's become a fortress this year, hasn't it? I think Hull KR, should they be wary of any of those two, or
let's forget that Wakefield did a number on Leigh, though, at Leigh earlier in the year. Wakefield, I think what you've got is potentially the two most attractive teams in the competition playing each other. I think they both play with brilliant shape, have got really, really smart players in the halves. And some X factor, you've got your Tom Johnston in there. Yeah. Josh Charnley's one of the great try scorers in the history of the competition.
Lachlan Lamb having another incredible season, though.
Yeah, and two teams that similar to Hull KR are on the rise. Wakefield, I mean, what a story that is. You think where they were only 2 or 3 years ago, where they are now, and Leigh.
Yeah. Well, Well, Matt, for me, it's very simple. The outcome, and it lies again. It goes back to my point. Who is the best defensive side over that particular season? I mean, I don't count games what have gone past. Who will defend the best on that particular day will win that footy game for me. And that's how I view it.
It'll be fascinating to see because we know them both for attack, don't we?
Yes,
Well, it sure will, and look, we hope that you enjoy week 1 of the playoffs. Do not forget to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of your favourite shows, your favourite articles or videos here at All Out Rugby League. Now, turning our attentions away, Ellery, from the Super League, let's talk about another part of your career that you were very, very well known for that time in your Great Britain shirt. Obviously, we've got the Ashes coming up. What's it like playing against the Australians, and what's it like leading a side out against the Australians?
Well, it's probably the most difficult assignment that any individual player will face in terms of playing against the Australians in the Ashes. They've got a lot of things to overcome. One or two of the things what they have to overcome is their individual brilliance and their collective brilliance. Now, for me, every single player, the bigger the game is, let me start off with this. The bigger the game is, the more solid you have to become in every department of your game. I'm talking about just in terms of, I go back to the defence because I think it's the most crucial thing. I think the defence is crucial in terms of that we have to get that department right. And these are the nuts and bolts what really need to be tightened up. And I'm sure Sean will take care of that completely. But the next factor after that then is the concentration then. And for me, that is absolutely crucial, the concentration and the discipline. Having that understanding that, you might get Mr. Grant, who might start at 9 for Australia. And if you are slack in that area, around that 9 area, they will attack you and they will punish you completely. So it's important that we concentrate for that every split second, right? Whether it's on the blind side or whether it's on the open side, we've got to make sure every player who goes out onto the footy paddock on that first test match, we've got to say to ourselves, as an individual, you've got to say to yourself, have I got my personal game right in terms of that? When I get into a tackle zone area, am I going to control the ruck area? Am I going to get back on my feet at first marker quick enough? And is my second marker going to get on his feet as well? And are both the markers going to continue working like that for the whole 80 minutes? Because that's what you have to do against Australia. Now, people talk about details. That's detail. That's what you have to do for every split second and every single ruck, what you have to do. Because as I said, once again, they have brilliance all over the footy paddock.
Who are you playing in the halves, Ellery?
Well, this is a very difficult one. Sean will work that out, and with his staff around him, I think it's a difficult one. And me personally, I wouldn't try to give anybody any advice in terms of how I know how I would. Something I'd always keep to myself in terms of that, who I'd play in the half. And, Sean will have his ideas, who he wants to play in the half. And so will other rugby league players as well.
Everybody will have an opinion, won't they? Everybody from across the world of sport will have an opinion. We've got 4 quality halfbacks, that's what it is.
Can I just say, Kyle, whatever happens on that day, that first test match, and if it went wrong for Great Britain, people say, well, we shouldn't have played at the halves. These two particular halves together. We should have had this. We should have had this format. So it's very difficult to say which halves. You've just got to have that trust in knowing that they do their job.
It's human nature as sports fans, isn't it? If we don't get the outcome we want, we look to blame something. We look to an end game.
The perils of being a head coach.
Of course, unless it works, then and we hope it does. Ellery, what I was going to say was that it's been a long time. It's been 20 years since England have played Australia in the Ashes. 2017, there was only a try in it. Remember, Josh Dugan on Callum Watkins, an ankle tap away from winning a World Cup. Has the gap? Do you believe? Because I'm really excited about the England squad at the minute. I think they've got a really good opportunity against Australia. Do you think that gap has closed?
100%. I'll give you the reason why it's closed. Once again, it's a simple thing for me to explain in terms of why it's closed. Because we've now got so many players playing over in Australia and played in Australia makes a massive difference for the experience for those players to go on the football paddock and understand there is no more fear now with the Australians. Don't get me wrong, they are brilliant, and I have full respect for the Australians. I hold my hat up to them and I tilt my head to them. They have brilliance, but I think the gap's closed because of that, and I think that's a key factor to why England will have a better chance of actually making a great game, a great series of this now completely. Because you imagine going back all those years when I played, we probably had 3 players at that particular time playing, and that's different than facing the green and gold machine then at that particular time.
Yeah, I think the other thing, Kyle, as well is if you can even look at the World Club Challenge. We've got guys playing for Saints and Wigan who have played Penrith, one of the great NRL teams of all time, and have overcome them. Yeah. A lot of those players in that team, Cleary, they will all play for Australia. And they've gone to the field, they've gone into war with them and come out on top. That has to give them some belief and confidence as well.
Yeah, it does. But this is my thoughts and belief. Once you go to the international level of playing, it's a different world there completely. Yeah. It's a completely different world to playing a club game and against each other. But what I'm saying here, I'm not contradicting myself, but what I'm actually saying here is that the players who've established themselves over the NRL and they're now coming back over here and they're going to face the Australians, we're better equipped to actually take on the Australians because we're at a different level completely. Make no mistake about it. You've got this to contend with as well. You've got the fact you've got Mal Reilly, who everybody, Mal Meninga, who everybody respects. And you first of all got to make sure that when you get your badge of honour, you've got to make sure that you've earned it and that you can walk off that footy park and knowing to face Mal and expecting that you've had a great game, not just an average game, a great game you've got to have with him. And then you've got the weight of expectancy as well. The England side have got so much on their shoulders that we've got to do well because now we've got players who have been playing in Australia. They should be better equipped. They should have the better understanding of them, but there's still that huge pressure of their brilliance.
Right, Rugby League fans, it's back. England taking on Australia in the Rugby League Ashes. It doesn't get any bigger than this. The toughest rivalry in our sport, back where it belongs. Everton already sold out. Headingley already sold out. So if you want to see it live, Wembley Stadium on Saturday the 25th of October is your only chance to do so. Ashes Rugby League at Wembley, you do not want to miss that, let me tell you. Adult tickets start from just 20 quid, so go and search Rugby League Ashes, or if you're watching on YouTube, click the link in the description and get yours now. Booking fees apply. Ellery, you captained in 1980, the series. And it was the nearly one, wasn't it?
Yep.
Does that still sting?
If I think about it, it does, but so much time has gone by. It's been a healing process. So, in fact, it's only when you flick on the TV and you look back and you think what could have been achieved at that particular time, and all the players that have been folk heroes in everybody's household and everything. But it didn't happen. We came close, and the good thing is we gave our very best, and that's the only thing you can ask of any individual player or collective team. That as long as you've given your very best. That's what matters in terms of that. No questions can be asked of you then.
Ellery, it's brilliant listening to you. Honestly, it is. How much pride did you feel in terms of captaining that side?
I didn't really think about that. I was the captain of the Great Britain side. I think when you do receive the captaincy, you know you have a duty to fulfil, and you've got to lead by example. In every single department, whether in defence or attack, whether it's inspirational in terms of talking to an individual player, whether you're coming in at half-time and you're speaking to the players, or if there's a small break in the game, saying the right words, not too much, and leading by action as well, which is absolutely crucial. But I didn't take the job on in terms of thinking, well, it's brilliant in terms of being the captain. I had a role to play. I had my duties to fulfill in terms of making sure all those departments what I had to do on the footy field, I made sure that I did them to the highest quality.
And what kind of captain were you then? Because I've played with many different kinds. I've played with the ones who shout, demand, drive standards, but I've also, the best ones I've actually played with are the ones that don't do all of that. They just follow me.
Yeah, I think that it's important to lead by example, and that's one of the things I always try to make sure I did in every single game, regardless of the score. The score didn't matter to me in terms of, yes, we wanted to win in every single game, 80 minutes we played in, but what mattered to me, that the players gave the very, very best. That was crucial, because I always knew that would give us a fighting chance of winning any game, whether it's international or club level or country game. So to me, that was crucial, and saying the right things at the right time. And I mean, you see, back years ago, and it happens from time to time, a coach can only let off steam once in a blue moon, now and again in a changing room, and otherwise it loses its effect anywhere down the line. So you've got to be smart as a coach as well. You've got to know when to actually, if you have to explode once in the whole season, you have to know when to do it and when to pull back.
Matt, who do you think will be captain in the side for England come the Ashes?
I would think it'd be George Williams. I think he has. We talk about the halfback debate, though, but I think he's built so much trust up with Sean Wayne for his performances, firstly in cherry and white for him, but also in England colours. And I think he will play and he will get the captaincy. And he's been a tremendous player for the country as well over a long period of time.
There's no doubt about it, but there's many people now are saying or questioning whether George's form at the moment warrants that.
Yeah, and this is all part of the conversation. He won't have played for a long time because he's missed the end of the season. And so then he goes into the toughest test in rugby league. Is he fit? Is he match sharp? There's all these questions, all these things that Sean Wayne has to think about. But what I always think, if I was a coach, I'd want players who I know I can trust. And I think Sean Wayne will think he can trust George Williams because of what he's done for him over a very long period of time. Yeah,
I wouldn't actually, I wouldn't disagree with you there, Matt, at all. Simply because I think that this is such a short period of time to change the captaincy and give it to somebody else and sit him, whether he starts the game or whether he's fit enough or whether he starts on the bench. I think there's a lot of responsibility in terms of being a captain. He's got to lead by example, and his fitness will come into question as well, and his form will come into question as well. And the players will be looking towards whether our leader in George Williams, is he playing well enough as well? Because you've got to play well as well. That's crucial for me.
Yeah, no, without doubt. And just looking at the talent over in the NRL, Herbie Farnworth, he's what a player he is. How important then, Ellery, do you think it is to have more? I mean, we've just seen there Morgan Smithies, Matty Nicholson,
Kai Pearce-Paul.
There's a lot of these lads now getting not only experience in the NRL, but probably getting battle hardened week in, week out. There's no doubt about it. The NRL will be a higher intensity across the full year than what we have at the Super League. I've spoke to many players who have played in Australia and came over here, and they've said that sort of the top 6 games, i.e. the playoffs, those will give you a level of NRL sort of intensity. The rest of it, we're not quite there. They get that week in, week out. There's no real game off. How important is that we get more and more players going over there, getting the experience, but then bringing it back into an England shirt?
Well, it's something I touched on earlier on in regards to that. Now we've got a number of players over there playing in the NRL. I think it's crucial. I think it's crucial for the Ashes series. They'll bring their experience across, and they'll bring that confidence as well in the rest of the squad, the team as well. For me, it's going to have a huge bearing on how well we do as well. Yeah. And it's also is what they say at that particular time in that 80 minutes in encouraging their players around them. If they're in a tight spot, understanding that they've been in the NRL and they've got to have a voice as well. So to sum that up in terms of how we'll go, for me, it all depends on just in regards to the players themselves. They have to be their own captain as well. Every individual player has to be their own captain, because you have a responsibility. You have so many particular things that you have to do on the football paddock. You have to get your game A1 and up to standard and ready at international level. You have to take care of that. You cannot have your captain of your whole team trying to explain to you, you've got to get this area correct. That should be automatic, and hence why I said that each player has to be a captain of the team.
Ellery, we're running out of time, but I just want to ask you something quite general. You've played in these games. You are one of the icons of the international game in those colours. How much would it mean to you if England could win an Ashes series in 2025 for everything you've achieved and now looking at the current crop? What would it mean to you if they were able to experience such a special achievement like that?
Well, it'd be marvellous because I think every single rugby league player, we all want to beat the Australians. I mean, when the test matches come up against New Zealand, we all want to beat New Zealand, yes, and Samoa, but Australia of all the countries, they've been the leading example of brilliance for me, and being the most consistent international team, and probably, as I said, one of the toughest assignments you'll ever play against Australians. So it'd be fantastic, and along with everybody else, I'd be delightful and joyful about it all.
Well, what a week it has been, and we will continue to bring in you shows over the next 8 weeks. We've got plenty more action ahead in the Super League and, of course, the Ashes. My thanks to Ellery for his time today, and to Matt, as always. And don't forget, guys at home, we want to hear from you, your comments about the things that we've been discussing about, and we'd love you to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and remember, for those at home watching on a mobile or a tablet, swipe left at the comments and hit that hype button to help us reach new, far and wider audiences. I've been Kyle Amor, and bye-bye for now.